Welcome to The Business Behind Your Business, the podcast where we delve into the financial strategies and insights that drive success for small and medium-sized business owners. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and in each episode we bring you expert guests who share practical advice, real-world experiences, and actionable tips to empower you on your business journey. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, get ready to uncover the secrets to success and gain valuable insights into the business behind your business. Welcome back to the Business Behind Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney. And look, one of the questions we often get asked is, how do I get to know my customers better? How do I get to understand my employees? How can I improve the conversations that I have? And how can I actually know what's going on with the people I'm interacting with without offending them, and so that I can fully understand the position they're coming from? It's a science, it's an art, but it's also something very practical and something we can learn. And what we're going to unpack today is how we can learn the benefits of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is a bit of a mouthful, but you'll understand why. You'll be pleased to know as well that I am not going to help us unpack that. I've brought in two experts who are going to clarify what exactly we're talking about with Neuro-Linguistic Programming, how it's going to benefit you as a business owner, how it's going to improve the conversations you have and improve the way that you operate as a business leader and in general. So I'm really pleased today to have Josh Davis and Greg Prosmushkin, who are the authors of The Difference That Makes the Difference. And, very keen to hear what you guys have to say. So welcome to the Business Behind Your Business.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, Paul, thank you for having us on. It's an honor. You have a great podcast, and we're honored to be your guests.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to have you. And I'm really excited about this because I think one of the things as a business owner, you are not taught these skills. As you go through school and university, these are the skills that we don't get taught, we don't understand, and we often struggle with. And so much of how we do business is about doing business with people. So I guess, look, let's start with the most basic question. What do we mean when we say neuro-linguistic programming?
All right. Yeah, I'll take that. So neuro-linguistic programming is a very powerful way to quickly identify what it's going to take to help you or someone else make a change and in a lasting way. And the reason that it works is because it's a set of tools and concepts that are particularly good at unpacking how somebody thinks, what makes them tick, what are their triggers, how do they see reality, essentially. And, I think what really I find motivating is that these are not just things that we've made up. These things, they come from the world of psychotherapy. They've been around for 50 years, time-tested stuff, because psychotherapists, day in and day out, are helping people to make important changes that they didn't think were possible before, to their behaviors, to their attitudes, and so forth. What is kind of powerful about NLP is that a linguist and his partner, they went and looked at the form, not just the content of what these psychotherapists were doing. And they kind of unpacked what are the critical things to pay attention to. What do people reveal in their language? And I don't want people to get worried, oh, what am I saying? We'll say more about how that can be a very positive thing. What do people reveal in their language about how they're thinking? How can you use language to identify how somebody's thinking? And then are there just some simple kind of approaches that we can take in terms of our mindset and the things that we do that help us to very quickly unpack? Because once you understand somebody, what we call their mental model of a situation, then you know what's holding them back from changing. Then you and they know what needs to change, and often becomes much easier to do so. So that's what NLP is all about.
So it's not the scary concept. It's not the thing that we should be worried about. It's something that we should be embracing. And look, I really appreciate that clear explanation of what it actually is. It's really demystified to me that what we're talking about here, it's not something spooky. It's not something we should be afraid of. And look, Josh, you're coming from a background of being a certified neuro-linguistic trainer, master practitioner, and you've also founded an institute researching into this topic in more detail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Science-Based Leadership Institute, and they're taking principles from neuroscience and psychology and seeing how can you apply them to, the day-to-day challenges that leaders face in organizations. And you find that what this has enabled is my background with the research and then marrying it with this world of NLP is to find where they match, where there's research that supports different tools and ideas from NLP. And I think that goes a long way in terms of making it something that can be relevant to all people in all contexts, or to most people in most contexts, let's say, right? That, it's not just somebody's advice. You can kind of see how it makes sense based on research. And so that's something that we've been able to do also with this book, is to draw those connections, actually for the first time in the 50-year history of NLP.
Yeah, and that's great. And look, I guess this is great where you come in. So you're a trial lawyer, an entrepreneur. You've also written your own books. I guess you're coming in from that business perspective, how you actually apply the concepts to business interactions.
Sure. I took an NLP course at Princeton NLP about 12 years ago. I was certified as a master practitioner, not just as a practitioner, not a master. Josh is a master practitioner in the group. And it has made an enormous difference in my life, because to me, NLP is an instructional manual for the brain. The way I explain it is, we're born with this powerful computer in our head, and nobody ever tells us how to use it. They teach us how to do math, they teach us how to read, but nobody sits down and tells you how to think. And what NLP does, it's an instruction manual that does, from my perspective, three things. It helps you understand yourself, helps you understand people around you, people you're trying to influence, and it teaches you how to influence yourself and others. And if you got those concepts down, life becomes wonderful, changes. It did for me. And I use it in business, I use it in law, I use it with my staff, I use it with my family. It's a technology that's not limited. It's really available for everything.
Yeah, and that's really powerful. We've been talking about how we actually understand our customers better, how we understand our employees, how we manage those business relationships. And I think we're only just beginning to start to see that there is more to how we've been doing it, from the traditional way we learn in textbooks to how we actually engage with people in all areas of our life, particularly in business. Where do we start to actually understand this concept ourselves as somebody new coming to it? Where would we start?
There are, for me, and I can only speak for myself because I'm a layperson, and Josh is an academic. He is a PhD. He's a smart dude. So, he knows this stuff inside and out, right? And I'm just some guy that trying to, get quick fixes to make my life better. And I can tell you, for me, the biggest takeaway from NLP for folks who never been exposed to it before is something that's known presuppositions. The way I describe it, when you have a computer, if you want to type a document, you need a program, you need Word. If you want to do a table, you need a spreadsheet, you need Excel. And there are certain programs, if we can have them running in the back of our mind, life becomes significantly, incrementally easier. For example, one of those beliefs is the map is not the territory, or everybody has a different map of reality. And if we can appreciate that the person we're speaking with has a different map than we do, and we can understand and elicit that map, then all of a sudden, there's no conflict. He's not wrong. You're saying he just believes what he believes. And in order to influence this person, I need to understand what he believes. And if I understand what motivates or drives this person, I am able to make change. And that's anyone. That's your wife, your son, your husband, your employee, your boss, anything. Because if you can understand where they're living, you can come into their world and make significant change in them.
And here's an example of that. You said, where do we start? I think, you can get the theory, you can get the ideas and say, okay, I like it. But once you actually use a piece of it, you're like, oh, and you feel it, then you're saying, okay, I get it on a whole different level. So what Greg was just saying, understanding the other person's map, I use the term mental model. Map, same thing, in case anyone was wondering. But so get into the other person's perspective. Why do they do what they do? What are they beliefs? Here's one way of doing that. I'm going to invite you right now, and anyone who's listening, to think of some situation with another person in your life, could be work or personal, because it doesn't matter, it'll generalize, where you're really kind of frustrated with them right now. There's something they've done, and is it possible for you to think of a situation like that? You don't have to tell us what it is. but it's
so many
okay.
conversations, so many situations.
I'm going to invite you to do something that at first, for some people, is going to feel uncomfortable. And it's going to feel like, what? That's, there's no way that I can do that. And for other people, they're willing to go there, wherever you are on it, as long as you're open to trying it out right now. That's all I ask. As you think about that person and what they've done, the last thing they did, the thing they did that frustrated you, I'm going to invite you to ask this question, and it may help to sort of imagine yourself in their shoes with their pressures and maybe the kinds of things demanded on them from their family or their boss, and maybe what kind of, background they're coming from. But the question is this: as you imagine yourself in the shoes of this other person as them, what is important to me? And you don't have to share with us what it is, but are you finding an answer coming to you?
Yeah.
And maybe even more specifically, what is important to me about doing that thing that I did that frustrated Paul, right? And now we'll go one step further. Now that you've got an answer, why is that important to me? That thing that was important, why is that important to me? And so now we're getting to a place where we're kind of very quickly diving into some important aspects of beliefs and values and even identity sometimes in the other person. And that is tremendously powerful. We're finding their positive intention. So there's a belief in NLP that every behavior has a positive intention. Some people might argue against that, but let's act as if it's the case. And some very interesting things happen. A lot of doors open. How might you approach this person differently now that you know what you know, right? So that's a how do you start? Just start. Take one of these ideas, just kind of reflect on a few key questions. One of the things we've done in the book is to, like, in each chapter where we introduce an idea, we have some prompts so you can just kind of think through it the way I just guided you to. But so how do you start? I think you just pick one piece and you start, and then you get a real flavor of what it means to quickly understand someone's mind.
Mm. Yeah, look, I think as soon as you asked me that question, I thought, well, okay, maybe there's something. But, very quickly I started having this flood of different ideas, situations, frustrations coming through. And I actually thought there's quite a few different situations just in one day. If I just think back to yesterday, there were quite a few frustrations from having to deal with clients, children, anything. But that whole mindset difference and thinking differently about where is that other person coming from, what's important to them. I'm sort of already, and I've got this dangerous habit of trying to leap ahead and come up with the solution. Maybe that's wrong as well.
Let's come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. We'll park it. So getting inside somebody's mind, Greg, perhaps you've implemented this in your business as a law firm. How has that really helped you and your employees to actually, I guess, get better outcomes? Is probably one of the things we're looking at, but actually, I think be more motivated and, I guess, understanding of your clients' needs.
Sure. It works. Let's start with the employees. Years ago, I was under the impression that everyone has my mental model. They were motivated by money. So I would have an employee who was unhappy, and I would try to make him happier by throwing money at him. And it didn't work. And I'd be like, what the heck is wrong with these people? I'm giving them everything they need, but they're not cooperating. And then when I realized that different people have different needs, and if we can elicit those needs, we can give them what they actually need. So, my staff is listening to this. And at this point, my staff is family. They know that I will find out what's motivating them and I will give it to them. And once you have a happy staff, it flows to your clients, because clients, they feel the culture of the organization. If it's an angry organization, the clients will feel it. But if it's loving, if it's happy, if the goal is to do whatever we can for the clients, but here comes the thing. You can't do for the clients until you know what they need done. Every client has a different need. So we can use this technology to figure out what the model of the client is and be responsive to their actual needs, not what we expect their needs to be without further proof, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Paul. And it works everywhere. When I'm in front of a judge, first few moments, my job is to calibrate what the judge's needs are, what his model is. Same thing when I deal with insurance adjusters, other lawyers, witnesses. When I'm cross-examining a hostile witness on a stand and they're saying something that doesn't make sense, I step back and say, why are they saying it? Nobody's inherently bad. They have a positive intent for what they're saying. So why are they saying it? Do they not want to go to jail? Do they not want to lose money? And if I can present a solution to them that says, wait a second, what you're afraid of, don't be. That's not on the table, then it becomes a different conversation.
Yeah. Okay. And by having that different approach there and that stepping back and understanding not just your client, but I guess all parties involved in that process. So the judge, the witness, that would change the way that you question the arguments that you're putting forward, the proposals you're suggesting.
Well, absolutely, because if you think you're dealing with a villain versus somebody who is very afraid of what's going to happen next, your approach is different. I had a case where I was cross-examining a drunk driver who injured someone. And I had to pivot midway through because, the hard approach wasn't getting me where I needed to go. And I said, wait a second. And we started delving into this woman's background about where she came from, the difficulties, the adversity she went through. And I made her feel that I understood where she was coming from. All of a sudden, she didn't view me as a nemesis, but as another person who's trying to accomplish a goal.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different situations where we do need to take that step back and try and understand that. And I think you've got some very useful tips in the book about how we could actually start to do that process, because I think there'd be it's not something that is very common to a lot of people. It's something completely new. It's a new approach because as I mentioned, it's not something we're taught. We've probably got in-ground belief systems and things, I guess, built into us through our family and also through the education system that we've come through. But how do we actually start to change that process? How do we start? What are some practical ways that we can start to implement?
I'll start, Josh. I guess you can, or do you want to start? I don't want to step in.
Go ahead. I got some ideas, but I'll save them.
Okay. I think from my perspective, step one is you, not the other people, but us on the inside. There are certain beliefs that we have to take on that make us, I use the word limitless. For example, one of the beliefs that I've incorporated from NLP that made all the difference in the world is that whatever I need to take the next step to accomplish my goal is already inside of me. Or the chapter is all I need is within me now. So if anybody in the world has done it, then if I do what they did, and we call that modeling, if I model people who have done it before, and I take every step that they took, then at least theoretically, and I will tell you in my life practically, you get similar results. And again, we're not talking about me playing professional football or basketball. I'm 56 years old, and that's just not going to happen. But reasonably, if I want to write a book, we did that. If I want to be a trial lawyer, I managed to accomplish that and be a pretty successful one. And I didn't do it because I'm talented, because I'm smarter than anybody. I just looked at guys who've done it, who've done a great job, and I followed their footsteps because their success left clues, and I followed those clues. So I think that's probably the best way to start from my perspective is with yourself, to understand yourself and be more effective at what you do. And Josh, I'm sorry I stepped on your toes. You were about to start talking.
That's great. That's great. I would add that when you're modeling someone, it's not just about what they do. I think that's conceptually a place to start, is to recognize that we often are thinking about what to do. Like, what steps can I take? What are the actions? And the actions are only relevant if it's in the right context. And so somebody else took certain actions. Well, they had a different context than you. When we're modeling someone, we're not just looking at what they did. We're looking at how they think of themselves, what they believe, what they think is possible, what they think is not possible, how they talk to themselves, what kinds of emotional states they're capable of accessing and when, how to learn how to do that, how they go about making decisions, how they write. It's like the stuff that makes up the world that they actually inhabit. And so that's kind of like an unspoken, important piece there to be able to succeed at what Greg is talking about. And so, for me, you mentioned now 2 or 3 times this word being curious, right? And stepping back, being curious, or I get ahead of myself, I should be more curious, something along those lines. That's the attitude to start with, right? I don't know everything. Specifically, I don't know everything about what you're thinking. I might be looking at your facial expressions right now and have an idea, reminding myself, I don't exactly know what that means. Does that mean serious? Does that mean you're off somewhere else? Does that mean, right? It could mean quite a lot of things. And so, Greg mentioned this early on. My reality and your reality are not the same. Like nobody has like a lock on reality. There's just so much out there in the world that can be interpreted so many different ways, right? Is it hard to make $1 million? Is it easy to make $1 million? Yes, right? They're different models of the world. And some people truly, completely believe one or the other. Some people are somewhere in between. Some people have a totally different belief. If I want to get somewhere as myself, or if I want to get somewhere with somebody else, my first step is to get curious about how they see reality. What's their world mentally, psychologically? What is their world, right? And if you do that, even if you don't have all the skills and all the tools and all the wonderful things that NLP can offer to do that so, expertly and elegantly, you still have that aim. That's going to be tremendous. Let me remember, I don't know exactly what this person thinks. I don't know what motivates them. I don't know what that means, that what they said. I don't know how to get from here to there when they say, well, I just take this step. Well, I wouldn't know how to do that. Just start being aware and getting curious of the things you don't understand. Presume that their reality is different from yours, because it is. And as you start to unpack what's different, that's how you find where you can really make progress.
That's great. I feel like we're only just sort of starting to touch the subject, and it's sort of opening up I guess for me, just a whole new way of doing things and a whole world of opportunity, really, when you think about all the opportunities I've closed off because I've taken a very closed view and looked at that person that I'm engaging with as a frustration, rather than, as Greg said, you're looking for where are they coming from, what is their situation at this time, what are they really needing, what are they feeling. I think we've just really touched the surface here, but I guess the advantage we've got is that you've put a lot of your thoughts, a lot of your practical guides into the book, which is the difference that makes a difference, or makes the difference. I just want to give us a brief overview of some of the content that we would find, or that we should start with when we look at the book.
Yeah, well, so big picture, the reason it's called that is because what you're doing when you're curious about somebody's mind here is you're looking for the difference that makes the difference for them. We've all had experiences where we've tried to change something in our life and we haven't been able to. It's just like, year after year, we keep not doing it. But we've also, I would wager, all had experiences where you've changed in an instant. It's like you had a conversation with someone and you just saw things differently, or you came to a certain realization, or you read this amazing story and there was a metaphor that stuck out for you, right? Or you got some news from the doctor about your health, right? And it's just in an instant and you change and that's it forever, right? It is possible. What's different, right? And so what we're looking for in NLP is what's the difference that will make the difference for this person in this context. And so within that, then the structure of the book, it's kind of 3 pieces. The first chunk of the book is the right mindset that's going to enable you, whether you've got the specific tools or not, to show up in the right way, that you're searching for the right information and you're resilient and you're ready to keep going. So that's a mindset that will make you limitless. That's how we describe it. And it's certainly, Greg and I have that experience. Many people have. They're called the presuppositions of NLP, things that you should presuppose in all contexts. Then we move into how to understand someone's mind, which could be your own mind. So the tools for recognizing what you don't know and how to probe deeper and quickly. And then the third section is how to change someone's mind. Again, your own or someone else's. We go out of our way to try to present things in a way where we're not talking about manipulating. You can't get someone to change if they don't want to. They are the ones. No one can change someone else. You change yourself. But there are ways that you can guide somebody. You can help support the change that they are actually looking for. And that's the kind of ethical use of this that we're looking for. So that third section is about how to change someone's mind. Some of the things that very quickly can help someone see a different perspective, or change their experience or step into someone else's shoes. The things that can quickly make those shifts.
And what separates us from other NLP books is, I don't know if you're Paul, if you ever read any previous books about NLP, they are very dense tomes written by psychologists for professionals. And, if I had hair, I would pull it out reading those books. But, Josh and I, my role was to dumb it down. That was my part for the book. And we're proud of this product because it's easily digestible, and we give everyday examples that illustrate exactly what we're talking about. It's not some crazy examples. It's actual real life stuff that happened to me, that happened to Josh. We're talking about real stuff and how we navigated real life hazards. And I truly believe anybody who reads this book will get value, whether they're a psychiatrist or a layperson who cuts grass. It's got value for everybody.
A funny thing that's happened as we've been editing the book is Greg and I both have stories like this where, there's this one thing that I used to do that would always irritate my wife. All of a sudden one day, about a year ago, that stopped happening. And she has never complained to me since then about it. Because what we're doing is, as we're reading it, we're following the prompts, applying it to whatever thing is on our mind that day, just because that's how so you can check out the chapter that you're reading. And we keep having these experiences, right, of applying it to a work thing or a personal thing. That's in addition to the examples that are in there. I just want to say, we're finding it perennially useful in these kind of day-to-day contexts for ourselves. And I feel okay saying that because we didn't invent the stuff, right? We're the reporters, we're the ones we've worked hard to teach it in a simple way.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you've captured both the key parts. You've captured the well, not so much the theory, but the what it actually is and how it works. And then you've shown some really practical examples of how everyday people can take those principles and apply them and to improve their capacity to steal your phrase, to become limitless. Look at those opportunities. And I'm excited about it because I can just see so many different situations in my day-to-day business. So in my accounting firm, I can see so many opportunities for dealing with those clients that are continually a source of frustration. There's always that one that you come across.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking particularly, and I'm sure, Greg, some of your examples are going to be very relevant to me when I read the book.
I mean, if there's people you find that you try to avoid, if there are situations where you're not showing up in the right state, or not feeling confident enough, or if there are points of resistance where you're resisting doing something or someone else on the team is, there are examples of all these sorts in, mom and pop kind of business, in, legal profession, and, someone in a corporate organizational setting, and, in coaching with your kids, these kinds of things all throughout.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Look, so the book, the difference that makes the difference, where do we get our hands on it? Where can we buy it?
Anywhere you want. Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, your local bookstore, any place that sells books.
I understand the international release date for English language is in August rather than in the US is July 8th.
Well, wherever you are in the world, you'll be able to get your hands on a copy of the book. If you want to find out more about Josh and Greg, we'll be sharing links to their profiles, to the website in the show notes, which will also be available on the businessbehindyourbusiness.com website, as always. Greg and Josh, it's been a pleasure to have you with us today. If there was one thing that you wanted to leave our listeners with, one action point that they need to take, what would that be?
It's a tough one. Let me think.
All right, here, I've got one for you. And it's an idea from NLP. It's one of the core presuppositions. The meaning of your communication is the response you get. And so what you can do as you go through the day, just try it for the day. What happens when you communicate with someone, and whatever reaction you get, whether you like it or not, you pause and you say, wait a second. I'm going to take responsibility for how this landed. The meaning of my communication is the response you get. And see what happens. We're not saying it's your fault. We're not saying it's right or wrong. We're saying see what happens when you take that attitude towards it.
Greg, did you want to add anything to that?
I really like that one because I communicate for a living. And I think when you take away the victim mentality, and that is, well, they just don't get me, it empowers you because you are responsible for what happens in your life. So when I communicate with Josh, with juries with my wife. If I say something that triggers my wife, it's easy to say, well, she's just that, and storm out. And you say, wait a second, it's on me. I was not eloquent in my delivery. And that brings us to one of the most important suppositions as well. And that there's no failure, there's only feedback. And what that means is we never fail. We just learn something that doesn't work. And what do? We try something else. And if that doesn't work, we try something else. And we keep trying till it does work. This is a success technology, Paul. I think all of your listeners, even if they don't buy the book, they should just go and Google NLP and just learn about it. This stuff is terrific.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh and Greg. It's been great. Some great advice there. And thank you for really demystifying what we mean by NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I think really there's an opportunity there for everybody to improve the way they communicate, improve the way they approach other parties in discussions, business, home situations. There's some great opportunities. And I think it's a skill that we need to, understand and apply. And once we start to do that, the world is limitless. So thank you again for joining us on The Business Behind Your Business. And thanks for publishing The Difference That Makes a Difference. It's certainly going to be a benefit to many people worldwide.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Business Behind Your Business. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and valuable for your business journey. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favourite platform. Share it with fellow business owners who could benefit, and send in your burning questions because we love hearing from you. Missed any of our previous episodes or looking for additional resources to help grow your business? Head over to our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. There you'll find our full archive of past episodes along with show notes, transcripts, and links to valuable resources mentioned in each episode. Your journey to business success continues at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep building the business of your dreams.